Eve was created from Adam's rib, according to the book of Genesis. But what about the other women? Where did the first women of ancient creation come from? This is by Ancient Origins Creative Content. The Bible, Genesis 2.7, is the first verse that tells us about the first man. It tells how God formed a man from the dust and below and blew the breath of life into him. And the man was then placed in Eden, where he had to tend the garden and animals. In the garden there was a tree containing the knowledge of good and evil. God prohibited the man from eating the fruit of this tree. Later, as none of the animals were found to be suitable companion for the man, God created a woman from the man's rib. The chapter ends by establishing the statement of primeval innocence, noting that the man and woman were naked and not ashamed, thus providing the basis for the subsequent narrative where wisdom is obtained through disobedience initiated by the woman. Although there are some stories and interpretations surrounding the first woman, the story of Adam and Eve is by no means universal. According to the Iroquois, the Huron, the Navajo people, the first human being was in fact a woman. This interpretation of the origins of the human race accords reasonably well with the facts concerning mitochondrial Eve, who according to currently popular scientific mythology is the mother of us all. Nevertheless, the role of the woman in many legends is the most intriguing, as varied as they are in the method in which they were created and in their circumstances. The first women share many similar characteristics across cultures. They are beautiful, they change the course of the world through their mere existence, and they provide us with glimpses of personalities that women around the world still inherit to this day. Lilith, Pandora, and Chatarupa, women who befuddled men and gods. For 4,000 years, Lilith was figured in the imaginations of writers, artists, and poets. Her origins lie in Babylonian demonology, where amulets and incantations were used to counter her sinister powers. Lilith was described as a winged spirit who preyed on pregnant women and infants. This portrayal of Lilith continued well up to the 7th century AD. However, in the Middle Ages, as the alphabet of Ben Sira was introduced, the ancient Babylonian she-demon took on new characteristics. The 5th chapter includes a Lilith with a new twist as Adam's first wife before Eve, who left Eden because she refused to be treated as Adam's inferior. The alphabet's narrative about Lilith is framed within the tale of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. In his effort to cure the king's young son, a courtier named Ben Sira invoked the name of God and inscribed an amulet with the names of 3 healing angels. Then he told a story of how these angels travel around the world to subdue evil spirits such as Lilith, who caused illness and death. Ben Sira cited the Bible passage which indicates that after creating Adam, God realized that it was not good for man to be alone. In Ben Sira's additions to the tale, God then formed a woman named Lilith. Soon the human couple began to quarrel as Lilith refused to lie underneath Adam, yet he insisted that the bottom is her rightful place and that she should submissively perform wifely duties. Lilith did not accept this and said that they were equal as they both were created from the earth. Now, in ancient Greek mythology, the story of the first woman appears in Hesiod's Theogony, 8th century to 7th century BC. After humans, all of whom were men, received the stolen gift, the fire from Prometheus, forethought, an angry Zeus decided to give humanity a punishing gift to compensate for the boon they had received. Zeus commanded Hephaestus to mold the first woman, a beautiful evil, whose descendants would continue to torment the human race, for from her is a race of women and female kind. Of her is a deadly race and tribe of women who lived amongst mortal men, to their great trouble. When the first woman appeared before gods and mortals, they looked at her in wonder. However, according to Hesiod, the woman was, quote, sheer guile, not to be withstood by men, end quote. The more famous version of this legend comes from another Hesiod poem, Works and Days, in which Hesiod expands on her origin and widens the scope of the misery she inflicts on humanity. In this version, more gods contribute to the first woman's completion. The goddess Athena clothed her and taught her how to weave. the goddess Aphrodite shed grace upon her head and cruel longing and cares that weary the limbs. Hermes gave her a shameful mind and deceitful nature, as well as the power of speech, putting in her lies and crafty words. The Charities adorned her with finery, and the Hore adorned her with a garland crown. The woman was given the name Pandora, all gifted, because all the Olympians gave her a gift. Pandora brought with her a jar. Due to textual corruption in the 16th century AD, this jar came to be called a box. The jar contained toil, sickness, and miseries that brought death to men. Prometheus had warned his brother Epimetheus, afterthought, not to accept any gifts from Zeus. However, Epimetheus, who quickly fell in love with Pandora, did not listen and accepted her. Pandora later opened and scattered the contents of her jar, releasing all the evil and miseries of the world, only leaving hope within it. The opening of the jar serves as the beginning of the Silver Age, in which mankind is subject to the cycle of death and rebirth. Hindu mythology believes that when Brahma was creating the universe, he gave form to a man and a woman. The man was named Shawambhu Manu, that is, self-manifested man, and the woman was named Chatarupa, she of 100 beautiful forms. However, after Brahma created Chatarupa and saw her for the first time, he was immediately infatuated and pursued her wherever she went. This made Chatarupa uncomfortable, and she moved in various directions to avoid Brahma's gaze. However, wherever she went, Brahma developed another head until he had 4, one for each direction of the compass. Chatarupa desperately leaped over him to stay out of his gaze for a brief moment, and at this, a 5th head appeared above the other heads of Brahma. Shiva saw this and sympathized with Chatarupa. Shiva then merged with his wife Parvati and formed the Ardhanari Shiva, half man, half woman god. In this form, Shiva taught Brahma that males and females are the same because their souls are exactly the same. The soul does not have a gender, only material. The different outer bodies are only due to different body parts. Born of corn and flour, women who inspired men to be better. A Cherokee legend says that for a time, the first man, Kanati, was very happy on earth. He roamed around the world, ate the fruits, and visited the animals. However, after some time, the man grew discontented and became very unhappy. This was mankind's first experience of boredom. Due to his boredom, Kanati started to use his mind and his strength in a new way, such as shooting arrows at the deer, picking plants with no reason, and tearing up animals' dens because he could do it. Soon the animals became concerned about him and called a council meeting to determine what to do. They thought that as the human was given a mind, he was supposed to have respect for other creatures. They called to the Great One to help them. Hearing their troubles, the Great One realized that he had forgotten his other gift for the earth. The Great One made a great plant grow up tall. Above the tall plant was a woman, a beautiful woman growing from the stalk of the strong corn. Meanwhile, Kanati had been roaming around the earth, sleeping in the strangest places, eating the unhealthiest food he could find. He was just lying on his side, nursing a stomach ache, when the Great One kicked him in his behind. "Get up, you lazy thing," the Great One said. "Be a man for your lady." The Cherokee believed that more than just being taught manners, we need someone to expect the best from us. Now that Kanati had this person, he quickly got up, brushed himself off, and gallantly offered his hand to the woman. The woman's name was Salu. The Gamilarai people of Australia believed that Ye, the goddess of light and creation, lived and slept in dreamtime. Whenever Ye opened her eyes, light fell on the earth and plants grew where she walked. One day Ye decided that in addition to plants, she would make something that could dance. She shined her light on the being resting inside ice caves, and fish and lizards came out, along with many other kinds of birds, mammals, and amphibians. Before she returned to her own world, Ye blessed her creations with the change of the seasons and promised that they would die. When they would die, they would join her in the sky. After many millennia of the dreamtime, Ye decided to return to see the animals she created. Each animal had a request for her. The kangaroo wanted to jump, the wombat wanted to wiggle, the lizard wanted legs, the bat wanted wings, and the platypus wanted something of everything. Ye granted these wishes. Before returning to the sky, Yi saw an animal she did not recognize, as he looked nothing like her other creations. This animal was a man, and he was the only one who did not wish for anything. While the man slept, Yi turned all her power on a flower, and soon, when the man woke up, he and all the other animals saw the flower turn into a woman. With the arrival of the woman, the duties and obligations of man began. He was the hunter, the maker of shelter, as she was the food gatherer, homemaker, and the bearer of children. They worked, danced, played, and loved together. Embla and Marianas, without women, men would not be complete. Askra and Embla, and the first male and female in Norse mythology. After the gods created the cosmos, they created Askra and Embla from two tree trunks that had washed up onto the beach of the land the gods had recently raised out of primordial waters. The gods, led by Odin, endowed these newly enlivened beings with Ond, that's breath and spirit, or odor, ecstasy, inspiration, and La, most scholarly suggestions relate this to vital procession. Askra and Embla were then given Midgard, a world of human civilization, for the dwelling place, as they became the father and mother of the entire human species. One of the two main sources of the narrative origin is the Voluspa, the insight of the seer, one of the poems of the poetic Edda. Now, Zoroastrianism believes that in the beginning there was only Ahura Mazda, the wise lord, and the evil spirit Ahriman. One day Ahura Mazda made the sky, water, and plants of the earth, quickly followed by big and small animals. He then created the first man, and after all this was done, evil Ahriman decided to destroy what had been created. He returned to his darkness and began to create demons and evil things to attack the pure light. When the wise Lord Ahura Mazda realized his creations would be attacked, he created 6 immortals to guard his creation. Ahriman became enraged by this and began his attacks. As he could not destroy them, Ahriman found ways to ruin Ahura Mazda's creation. He brought bitterness to the water. He created mountains and valleys to the flat earth. He inflicted death into life, condemning them to always be fighting each other. He also mixed pain into pleasure and sadness into happiness. Goyamar, the first man who tried to protect the earth from evil Ahriman and his demons, was unable to defeat them alone. However, a rhubarb plant grew where Goyamar died, and after 40 years of man and woman, Mashia and Marianas grew from the rhubarb plant. Mashia and Marianas promised Ahura Mazda they would help him in his struggle against Ahriman together. This is Creative Commons from members of ancient origins, and please tell me what you think. These are various legends, of course, throughout the world. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.